Big changes happening over here at Renegade. I know many of you have been following our journey, and with more than 400 graduates across 15 countries, we have learned a thing or two, and we are listening loudly. As we've grown, expanded, and evolved, what we've learned is that this container, this curriculum and content, the community and collaboration and the accountability, it's much bigger than an 8-week intensive accelerator. So we are now an annual experience. It's ongoing, and you don't have to wait until spring or fall to join us. We are accepting applications and nominations right now. And we're enrolling and onboarding new women every single week. We are enrolling female leaders, executives, and founders from all over, across all different industries. We are industry agnostic intentionally, and these are like-minded, like-hearted women who are fiercely loyal to each other's results and success. So you can get an unfair advantage to 2023 and get a jump start now. You can learn more at renegade.global. We'd love to explore this with you. Just apply today and we'll be in touch.
I think if you have any feminist feelings, you got to look around you and you got to look down on the totem pole and go, who can I help up? Because that's my feminist agenda in action. That's me, taking it from words and feelings to actual action. I will help somebody. They will help somebody. And then, it'll just set fire to the whole thing.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
We have Kristen Bell and Monica Padman on the show today. And yes, that Kristen and that Monica from Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. Okay, so Kristen and Monica are talking all things shattering glass, shattering that glass ceiling. We are talking about negotiating. We are talking about imposter syndrome, confidence, and the role men play in elevating women. Both Kristen and Monica are renegades. They're at the top of their game within their industries. Yes, Kristen Bell is an A-list celebrity. She has been on the big screen playing some of the biggest roles. And Monica is the co-host of one of the very, very, very top podcasts out there. So they know what they're talking about. But this is a topic today that they don't always talk about. And that is, how do we accelerate women forward? And how do we accelerate women upward in order to put cracks in that glass ceiling? It's really interesting to hear this side of them and to hear their point of view, to hear their journey, their challenges, specific situations. Now, Kristen Bell and Monica Padman have a new series coming out. This is a podcast series where they interview women like Oprah Winfrey and Malala and Gloria Steinem and share their stories, because seeing is believing, and everybody's story has lessons, has opportunity for other people. Without further ado, here is Kristen Bell and Monica Padman. Kristen and Monica, welcome to the Why Not Now show. Thank you so much for joining. And in the spirit of Why Not Now, can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now?
Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Okay. Oh, we're gonna run into the same problem. We have very similar voices. So this is Monica speaking. I guess I would say the first time I really had that feeling was when I decided to move to Los Angeles. I mean, I always wanted to, and it was on the horizon, and it was a plan, and it was a plan, and it was a plan, but it kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And at some point I just had to say, now is the time. And you kind of just have to take the leap, but because you can stall forever, and you will, if you don't eventually say like, now I'm just doing it.
Do you remember the moment? Was it brewing and bubbling, or was there just finally, all right, this is it? Was there a thing in that minute, season, hour?
Yes, I was working at my old cheerleading coach's gym, and I was surprised. I was happy working there. I was working the front desk. There was all these really fun people around. Like, I loved that environment, and I started to get really comfortable, and I started to get a little nervous about that because I had all these big plans. And I remember I was at a restaurant with all these wonderful people I worked with, and I started to see myself there for a long time. And I thought, like, I can't. This is too easy of a road to go down. And the next day I started making plans to get on out of there.
I love it. I love it. Let's hop to Kristen as well. And then I'm guessing there will be some themes in here, but I also would love to talk about your new project.
Yeah, I would say Monica reminded me, I had a similar one when I moved to LA. I mean, I think that's the most isolatable big decision of like completely moving coasts, because I was living in New York. And the why not now, I remember really specifically, it was when two of my best friends had also said, should we move to LA? And we collectively asked ourselves that question. And the reason that's significant for me is because until very recently, probably the last 3 or 4 years, my why not nows have always been a community question, because I am paralyzingly codependent. So they have always been, should we do it? Should we do this as a team? That's the only way I felt comfortable. Now, as I've grown older and started nurturing my inner introvert, especially during the pandemic, with the added time, I mean, I know it was weird during the pandemic. We had all this time, but then also we had no time. But there were questions I asked myself of, I've always wanted to paint. I've always wanted to draw more. Why not now? This is the time. So I asked myself personally those questions over the past year, but it took a global pandemic for me to be able to ask myself that question. So that's the takeaway for me, because I've always been able to rally a group of my friends to do something and take a risk. But the solo venture is just now showing itself to me.
Very interesting. And so even looking at, Monica, what you had said about, you got nervous because you were getting too comfortable. It was becoming too easy, and how, self-aware you were to know that that was a road that you didn't necessarily want to go down. And then Kristen, with, looking at a lot of women who listen to this show are considering a pretty big shift. And one of the things we talk a lot about is you want to be somewhat protective in the early phase of an idea or a big move on who you might share that with, because you want them to help foster the seed, right? It's like a greenhouse that sometimes you want to protect. And that's kind of a parlay into, I know you have a new project that's really focused on women and, shattered glass and shattering that glass ceiling. And so there's so much commentary and so much understanding, I believe, around us supporting each other. What do you think is the role of men in helping this happen?
Personally, I think it's the exact same as women. I think that we are going to get nowhere if we keep separating into these groups. That has to do with any form of, not just the Me Too movement, but in the workplace and the home life and equal share of the chores. We need men to be on the same team. The conversation cannot just happen for women, and we can't completely disregard someone who sort of isn't there yet. Like I think if somebody makes a mistake and isn't doing 50% of the work with the kids, you can explain to them, well, now there's a big conversation going on about how we should share the chores. Let's do that. Like I think we need to keep men on the same team. And I think it's really important that we keep men in the conversation, because we will get nowhere if we disregard there
half the people on earth.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I completely agree. I think it's oftentimes a mispoint in the formula for moving forward.
We disregard how much they can help our cause and our movement. We will fail.
Yeah. And there on one of the Dave Chappelle specials, he said, you're going to have to accept some imperfect allies. And I always think about that, because if we're waiting for perfection, if we're waiting for everyone to be at 100% on our level, or, cohesive agreement on everything, we're just not ever going to make any forward movement. And so it's important for us to keep having these conversations with everyone so that everyone can take little steps so that we can, eventually make bigger leaps.
I think about mentorship as well, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Historically, until maybe 5 years ago, most of my mentors were men, and it was just a numbers game because a lot of us worked around so many men. And so when it comes to mentorship and knowing we can have equal value exchange, obviously we must. What do you look for in mentors? And also, do you have mentees? And how does that play a role in your lives?
I have a mentor. She's sitting right here.
Amazing.
Great question for us, because she might not want to take credit, but that's definitely who she is. And it's incredibly important to have female role models. In general, modeling from birth is incredibly important. You model what your parents do. So you want to see someone like you who is making good decisions and owning their own power. And that's exactly.
And owning their own struggles and mistakes and not sweeping them under the rug. And I will also say that this podcast, which is my first time ever doing this, Monica's been my mentor, because I've turned to her when I was nervous to talk to some of these huge name women that we were going to have casual conversations with. And I'd say, are these good questions that I've prepared? What do you think I need to ask about? And she's guided me. So now, sure, maybe I was your mentor in the beginning, but now it's a tennis game where we're there for each other. And I will say, having just been in the business for so long that I've seen other women, I think it's incredibly important to have mentees. If you think that there is 1 ounce of your body that cares about female representation or women helping women, you got to put it into action. I think if you have any feminist feelings, you got to look around you and you got to look down on the totem pole and go, who can I help up? Because that's my feminist agenda in action. That's me, taking it from words and feelings to actual action. I will help somebody. They will help somebody. And then, it'll just set fire to the whole thing.
And it also then prevents this idea of there's only one spot. There's only one spot for a woman. If women are bringing other women up, that's just not the case. So it's so important to do.
I love that. And I love that you're reverse mentoring back and forth. It's a volley, right? Because here you are in this new situation and Monica, I've been listening to your show for quite a while. It's the only one I really listen to because we've done almost 300 of these, and it's just, and you have your 10,000 hours. It's your zone of mastery. So it's amazing that you're able to share that with Kristen as well. Speaking of, confidence and the confidence you're giving into this zone, I work with a lot of female leaders, my team and I do, and whether they're SVPs, they're at that C-level, they're on boards, and still the number one topic of conversation is imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs, right? And their resumes are stacked. They're decorated. They're at the top of their game in their industries. how do you deal with that? And what are some of the potentially tips that you could offer when it comes to being in a situation where you may not feel super confident, but you figure it out?
I would say this is the hard truth, we all need to get over this addiction to feeling comfortable and confident all the time. That's something the boys have in spades. They feel overconfidence even when they don't know how to do it. Maybe the women feel a little differently, but flush that down the toilet. It's not benefiting anyone. You're going to be in a room where you're not confident. You're still going to be able to do the next right thing, make the next right decision. If you let that anxiety overwhelm you, you will fail. So I would say rather than a tip and a trick is just to know it's there, observe that feeling. I'm not going to feel confident in this situation, but I'm still going to walk through the door. There's really no other fix to it than that I see. It's like, just stop giving it the headspace that it's asking for.
Yeah. And I think also know that if you aren't feeling some of those feelings, then perhaps you're a sociopath. I mean, like, it's just part of a human. If you're empathetic and present, like all of these things that you want to be, it comes with that. Like, even just on Armchair. And this is, I don't think actually specific to women. I think a lot of people who are get placed in these positions of power or, find themselves in a meeting with VPs of Netflix or whatever. Like, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, how did I end up here? It all starts flooding in your brain, but it should. It just means you're aware of the whole gambit of your life and other people's, and you're just self-aware of the world around you, which is important.
And especially as women, I think we should start to place the value on those feelings. That's what separates us sometimes. And Monica's right, it can happen to guys too. But my main goal is to help women recognize what has previously been looked at as our weaknesses, start looking at them as our strengths. When you walk into a room and you feel nervous to be there, how did you get there? Those could be the words you say to yourself. Here's another way to say those words. Wow, this is exciting. I'm in this room. I must be here because I'm offering a fresh new perspective. I must be here because they think I'm qualified and I have it in me to offer something new because I don't yet understand the inner workings of this room.
Fresh eyes are valuable, right?
Absolutely. Always a way to reframe it. Always.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us.
In terms of confidence, there are times, my friends and I were just talking about this, there are times where I look back and I'm like, I'm not even sure if I was confident or if I'd kind of faked it enough that I thought I was. It really doesn't matter, one or the other, but I might have been faking it at the moment. It became so common, right? It's like, it's fine even if you just show up.
You fake it enough times and that starts to fade because you've proven to yourself that you can do it.
Or you don't even have to fake it. You say, I'm unsure how to make this decision. And that, by the way, is a brilliant thing that any leader can do. I'm unsure. I need to gather more information. And you get the perspectives of 6 people around you. And at that point, you'll probably have a gut instinct as to what decision to make or how to proceed with said meeting. And you have shown a beautiful color in the human personality that we don't see very often, which is the admittance of I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think someone we spoke to even was telling us that, like, there's power in saying I don't know yet. I'll get back to you.
Yeah. We've got books about that for my girls. There's a great book called I Wonder about the power of saying I don't know. And I think it's something we have yet to find a generation that's comfortable doing, but I really want to see it. Because, by the way, when you say I don't know, all you do is gather more data and make a better decision. And when you say I don't know, and both people say it, it means you can wonder together.
And I do believe you can say, I don't know confidently. Like, I don't know. And you can still maintain a presence that I still deserve to be here. And I have, I'm here for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm a big proponent of getting more women a seat on the cap table, not just a seat at the table. So equity, advisory shares, whatever it is, so we can have a larger, more influential voice in big decision making. And also, if we follow money, if we follow capital, we find more influence and power and persuasion. Can you tell me about a time where you have had to really lobby for yourself and negotiate and a big takeaway from that experience? It could be a lesson. It doesn't have to be a win. Sometimes the best takeaways are from things that didn't go well.
Well, every time I'm still learning to do that. I don't really know how to do it. And every time I've ever done it in any of the jobs I've had, it's been at the encouragement of my husband, who has said, we have a saying in our house when we want to give advice to anybody, it's, are you coachable? It's like a question of like, do I need to walk on eggshells or can you hear me right now? And so for some specific contracts, he'd say, are you coachable? Do you want my advice? And then he'd go, you're thinking way too much about this. Here's what your value is. And if they don't want your value, you can walk away. And those have been really hard decisions because I am very empathetic. I'm like, well, I don't want them to think I'm greedy. And he's like, here's the market right now. Here's what the market is doing. And he'll break it down in a very male way to numbers. And then I'll see the value. And every time I've done that, it's worked, but I'm still unable to do it by myself. I'm still learning.
It's hard. It is so hard. And I mean, I do think it's, and maybe this is across the board, but I just know from all of the females around me who are in business, like this idea of I shouldn't because, yeah, I'll seem greedy, or I'm supposed to be grateful. Like this idea that you're supposed to be grateful for the opportunity versus like getting what you deserve is like in all of our bones as females, I think. And I personally am trying so hard to break that, even if for a second it makes me seem ungrateful. It's worth it. It's worth it at the end of the day because I know that I'm grateful. I know in my heart, I am very grateful for this opportunity and I deserve this because I'm bringing this to this operation.
And another way to even look at it is if you're having trouble doing it, like I do, that's one way to place some value on the men in your life. Like I can't yet do it. I don't know if I ever will. I do know I'm still grateful, but if I have trouble, that's where I can look to the dudes in my life, like my husband, who can make really quick decisions about his value and say, can you help me apply this? Can you help me look at this? Like, I find that really valuable. And that's me saying, I don't know, getting more data and then having someone help me make the decision. I mean, that's why the men got to be on our team, because one of my things isn't working and one of his things is.
And you have some power players. Holy buckets. I'm excited.
We sure do. We give all of those interviews like, how did that just happen?
This was Monica's idea in the midst of the conversation of a woman being in the White House and how important that was to everyone, no matter what your political beliefs are. Everybody felt the ceiling shatter that day. Mm-hmm. The idea of stories being represented. She just said, should we do a podcast where you hear from women that have inspiring stories? Because we all know Kamala's story now, and it's affected a lot of people on all sides. But there's hundreds of thousands of women that we don't know about, or some
we do, but we don't know the details.
Right.
And they've helped, put all these cracks in the glass ceiling for the rest of us. And it's just, we're not trying to preach. We're not trying to teach anyone anything very specifically. We're not saying get in line here.
We're not trying to convert anyone. We're just opening up the discussion to all these different stories and saying, here's some ear candy. If this inspires you, run out into the world.
And also just like, thank you to these people.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us this and empowering others to do the same. It was a meme, I guess, or it was going around the internet a while ago of like this little cartoon woman helping another woman up and then another one underneath helping.
Yes, I love it.
Cycle. And I love it so much. And it's in an attempt to kind of put some of that to action in real life.
So we're talking Oprah Winfrey, we're talking Gloria Steinem and Malala. And without giving it away, are there any trends and themes that you were surprised to hear as you were connecting the different conversations?
They're surprisingly different.
Yeah, this is what's so beautiful about it. No two human beings are the same. the same, no one has the same foods, no one has the same, mental health, self-care list, no one has the same goals. Each woman had very specific pieces of advice. And my goal personally is to have all the advice on the table and say, just cherry pick whatever you want, like what works for you. There was information about, being able to stand up for yourself. There was information about making one decision at a time, brick by brick. That's how goals are built, ignoring the urgency, which I found particularly resonated with me because I'm like such a big picture person and I don't realize how to go brick by brick.
Yeah. And I think as women, we do feel like, okay, we can't do brick. Oh my God, that's really hard to say. Brick by brick, because then you'll lose the momentum. Then you'll lose the thing. Like you have to be on top of the world at all times. But yeah, I mean, and Kristen keeps saying every time we do this, like every episode, she's like, I'm going to make that a lower back tattoo, like her whole back.
I'm gonna be covered in tats.
Yeah, you can have a few, huh?
But yeah, everyone has had their own very personal thing to share that has been unique, which has been great.
And there are a lot of different types of women. So we're hoping every different type listens to it and hears the advice that they need.
Thank you for doing this. I'm jazzed and excited to listen and learn. A couple rapid fire questions for y'all, and then we'll wrap up. And pirates or ninjas, who's tougher and why?
Oh, ninjas for sure. Because a lot of ninjas, I feel like they can fly. And pirates can definitely not fly. They're like the opposite of landlocked. They're like boat locked. Also, like a lot of pirates are missing extremities.
That's true.
Orbital sockets. Like they're half there. Whereas ninjas can do anything.
And they're like discreet.
All right, Monica.
Discreet. Pirates are very flashy.
Yeah.
And ninjas are very discreet, which is a superpower.
Okay. Okay, cool. What gets you up in the morning?
Matcha.
What keeps you up at night?
Matcha. Good TV shows.
Okay.
I have a very ruminating brain, so pretty much everything keeps me up at
Monkey
night.
mind? Okay.
Yeah.
How do you keep your mind healthy then, Monica?
Exercise is a huge factor. I try to meditate. Sunlight for me is huge.
And are you still in the attic thing, or is that like a long time ago? No, okay.
We're currently in the attic.
Okay, but there's some sunlight in there, yeah? Oh, a little bit. Oh gosh.
There's a bathroom with no door.
I just always, I feel like I have been there hearing so much about this space.
Very specific space. Yes, and it does have a lot of light. It's great. Yeah, it can be a struggle turning your brain off, but you just kind of take the tactics that work for you.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Kristen? How do you keep your mind healthy?
Definitely exercise, community, forcing myself to have like a walk with a friend, even when I'm not in the mood. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy as well.
Okay. Yep,
Anytime I'm in an anxiety or depressive state, I'm pretty good about CBTing myself out of it, which is a series of questions you can write down and answer for yourself. That's been pretty helpful. And reaching out, trying to pay attention, because sometimes I have a big toolbox of like mental health fixers, but I don't always remember they're there because my disease clouds it. So talking to Monica or talking to Dax or any one of our friends and saying, I'm feeling like I'm not myself. I feel like, I want to peel my skin off, or I feel like crying, or just saying my symptoms out loud makes them feel a little bit more ridiculous, which is helpful. And then knowing that someone's always there, talking it out.
And last two questions. First, what's one thing you find yourself learning over and over?
Oh, how to use the broiler. Oh God. I burn everything in the broiler. You can't understand how quickly things will burn or set fire when you put the broiler on.
I echo that sentiment, yes. And the toaster for that matter for me. But Monica?
I'm learning over and over that your value doesn't reside in what you're giving other people. Like being the most helpful person doesn't make you more valuable internally, innately. That's a hard one for me to adjust. Like you can be valuable and not be someone's number one.
And if we were to go back to where we started, the genesis of this chat, you both talked about moving to LA. And Monica, when you made that decision and you remember exactly where you were, you're sitting there and you're a little too comfortable and you realize that's making you nervous. If you could go back and just say something to yourself in that moment, what would you say?
I guess I would say nothing's permanent in a good way and a bad way. You can get out of anything that feels too scary, or this too scary things will become less scary. I think everything feels very permanent when you're about to make a big leap.
Amazing. And Kristen, you talked a little bit about kind of rallying the troops and getting a yes out of everyone and then moving forward versus now being able to find that more and more from within only. What would you say to yourself at that time where you were more really needing community?
I would definitely say you're all right on your own. You are safe on your own. You're enough.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you're valuable on your own as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And we will be excited. It's important work to share these stories, seeing is believing. And I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for chatting with us.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?